Servus, Freunde. My name's
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi. What are you doing, Bodymeister?
If I ever want to be free from your clutches, I need to use my own recording equipment. Swap body movement, you know?
Well, be my guest. Servus, Freunde. My name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
Servus, Freunde. My name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
And since this year marks the 100th birthday of Satyajit Ray, we continue to delve deep into his wonderful filmography. And today we want to talk about his 1984 movie Hare Bayre, The Home and the World.
Hare Bayre is a 1984 Bengali romantic drama that was written and directed by Satyajit Ray. It's based on a novel by Nobel Prize winner Rabindranath Tagore, who is of course no stranger to us. And a very interesting fact about Hare Bayre is that Ray actually already worked on an adaptation of Tagore's story before he did his very first movie Pather Panchali.
And almost 30 years later, he realized it. But the production had a serious drawback because Ray suffered two massive heart attacks during the shooting, and it was his son Shondip Ray who completed the project from his detailed instructions.
The story is set in 1907, 2 years after the partition of Bengal by Lord Curzon, which separated the largely Muslim eastern areas from the largely Hindu western areas. At the time, the Swadeshi movement that called for national independence and the boycotting of foreign goods was on the rise. And in Hare Bayre, we're right in the middle of a triangular conflict of characters that represent the different sides of the political contentions of that time.
Our three characters are Nikhil, played by Victor Banerjee, a peaceful rich nobleman whose estate forms the venue of the story, his wife Bimala, played by Swatilekha Singh Gupta, who lives an innocent and secluded life in accordance with her traditional upbringing, and Nikhil's old friend Shondip, played by Soumitra Chatterjee, a passionate leader of the Swadeshi movement who attracts Bimala.
Nikhil is a progressive and mature man. He actually opposes Bimala's traditionalist thinking by allowing her to do whatever she wants. So even when he realizes that she fell for Shondip, he doesn't interfere. He wants her to make her own decisions and experiences.
It's an interesting setup, and this story, as it was written by Tagore in 1916, was quite controversial for the time. But not only for its handling of these emancipatory topics, but also because of its approach to themes like political radicalization and the strained relationship between Hindus and Muslims. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from the movie, and what fascinated me the most about it, how timely its subject matter feels and how it is able to point its finger on it. There's so much about it that is still relevant today, which is really sad.
With its blend of these two layers, the love triangle on one hand and the political and social changes on the other, Hare Bayre reminded me of Shatranj Ke Khiladi, which also had a conjunction like that, a structure that connects a microcosm, the small world, with a macrocosm, the big world. Hence the name Hare Bayre, the home and the world, which is of course also a reference, maybe even more so, to Bimala's situation.
Absolutely, and in regards to her emancipation, the movie also played a little bit like a lesser Charulata to me, which is of course not completely fair because there are many different layers to be found in this one. But this love triangle situation and the setting of this big estate and a woman who lives secluded behind its beautiful walls, there are some clear similarities.
In many ways, Hare Bayre is an archetypal Satyajit Ray movie. It has the graceful slow pacing, the focus on its characters and the relationships, and many scenes that just consists of people talking about big ideas and big themes, revealing their inner feelings and convictions. It can be quite a philosophical and poetic movie, and it has its strongest moments when it is.
I agree, it features good performances by its three leads, the color cinematography by Shumendra Roy is beautiful at times, especially when it relies on natural light like candlelight, and the score, once again composed by Ray himself, has this hauntingly bittersweet quality. Yet I have to admit that the movie as a whole didn't quite appeal to me that much.
Unfortunately, I have to agree, something's off with Hare Bayre. As I just said, it's a Ray movie, and it has these moments where you're just in awe of what you see. It can be absolutely masterful, but it's the little things that won't work and that give you this feeling of not being complete, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a good movie, I have no doubt about that. But my expectations for a Satyajit Ray film are pretty high, and this one, despite all its merits, left me a little bit cold, to be honest. The characters are interesting and the performance is good, and yet they never felt as authentic and real as in his other movies. The whole movie felt a bit stiff and almost lifeless to me.
Stiff and authentic might be the perfect words here. In many scenes you have the feeling that you're just watching people act. that they just got thrown into costumes and start to recite something poetic. Of course, you're always watching people act, I understand that, but here it doesn't feel as organic, as if the actors are not able to completely disappear in their characters. Except for Victor Banerjee, he's actually pretty fantastic and I loved him in every scene.
He's the shining beacon here, yes, I loved him too. But regarding to the others, it's actually a common criticism about this movie. Some people even say that Swatilekha Sengupta is miscast completely and that even the great Soumitra Chatterjee is like a fish out of water. And while I really don't see it that bad, I can understand it, also because I agree with what you just said. I think at one point Soumitra Chatterjee was actually considered for playing Nikhil, but when Victor Banerjee emerged in the industry, Ray knew he had to cast him instead, as he would be perfect for the role. But one thing that we should also notice is that there are quite a few people who say that Tagore's novel was far from being perfect either.
Well, I believe that we probably didn't get a lot of stuff too. I mean, I know a little bit about the problematic situation in India at that time in regards to Indian and foreign goods and how the British turned everything on its head, but you said that you read about different attempts of interpreting Khare Baire.
Yes, I read an interpretation about what the different characters stand for in a metaphorical way. How one character represents Gandhi, one represents Tagore, and yet another one represents Satyajit Ray himself. But it was actually too complicated in connection with the political and historical background to fully get it.
And the movie actually also doesn't work that well in bringing the two worlds, the two layers that I mentioned earlier, together.
The emotional and political conflicts never fully sprung over to me. It's interesting and something that lends itself to a good discussion, but it wasn't really gripping. I mean, it's not like Ray is known for making thrillers, but this one is just a bit too predictable.
I agree, and it's also quite long. It has a runtime of 140 minutes. It's far from being a boring movie, but again, it doesn't feel as complete and coherent as Ray's other movies. But there are these beautiful Ray moments that almost make up for everything. Moments where you get the more subtle criticism of the political system, but also the Swadeshi movement. Moments where the characters feel real and give us a glimpse inside of their heart. Moments where we hear the train in the background, one of Ray's most beloved symbols.
Definitely, yes. As with the chess players, Ray is not taking a side. He's not telling you who's right and who's wrong, because it's simply not that easy. And although The Home and the World is not the movie I expected or wanted it to be, it's worth a watch, or maybe even two. It's not a great movie, but certainly a fascinating one.
So what would we say in German about Khare Baire, The Home and the World?
Das Heim und die Welt ist eine vielschichtige Erzählung über Gewaltfreiheit und Gewalt, über Emanzipation und die Verführungen der Welt. Und dabei ist er auch ein typischer Ray-Film. Nachdenklich, langsam und angetrieben von tiefgründigen Dialogen. An die großen Filme des Meisters kommt er aber nicht ran. Dazu ist die Umsetzung irgendwie zu hölzern und die Emotionen nicht greifbar genug. I give The Home and the World 7 out of 10. It's more like 6.8, but I don't do that.
For me, it's also 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.1, but I don't do that either.
What did you learn today, Bimona?
Nothing.
Did you know that Swatilekha Sengupta only acted in a handful of movies, but interestingly enough, she was reunited with Soumitra Chatterjee in 2015's family drama Bela Sheshe?
Of course I knew that. I reviewed that movie.
Alright, yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about The Home and the World? Leave a comment and hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at The Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at The Bodymeister.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.
Vande Bodyman!
Sorry.